Welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight's video, I'm a little fired up. I'm gonna do my best to behave best I can, but I'm gonna start with. I'm gonna talk a little bit about highs and lows. I think is probably the best way to phrase it. I'm not even sure how to title it, but I'll tell you a story and you'll understand why I'm a little cranky. Um, we've had a really good series of a couple days here. We've had some good things happening, and it wasn't gifts. Sam and I have been putting in a lot of hard work to course correct some things that have happened in our lives. And I am incredibly proud of her and the work she's doing. And the things that she's doing is stronger than 95% of the people I know. And so for those that pass judgment, stick it. As far as, my end of the deal, I've got to hold up my end of the bargain as her partner to hold down the fort and take care of business. And we've had more than our fair share of nonsense and pressure from the outside of our home on this home, some warranted, but some not. And so we went through 4 or 5 things right in a row that were just so positive. And shout out to David and Brittany for your support of our home and the work that you guys do. It's tough work, and the way that you guys communicate and the empathy that you show and the allowance for the conversation to advance into something where it just, you guys handle communication very well. It's not cut and dry with you in terms of how you deal with things. And I think your work is tough, and I'm appreciative of both individuals there. And I named it by name for the first time, just because you stand out in terms of how you perform the duties of your job. And so for that, I'm appreciative. And I think it's been helpful. And in a lot of ways, the things that we've been able to handle and manage and work through, we couldn't have done it had it not been for your approach and the way that you're willing to help us through the situation. So thank you. Having said that, a couple videos ago, I made a comment about how you can be going along, chugging along, everything can go well. Now, there's a couple things in this video I'm going to approach here. One is my mindset in terms of how I have to look at things, but also cautionary tale. If you're going down this road, man, you really got to keep yourself together, because if you get involved in systematic programs, man, anything can go on. Because what I said in a couple of videos ago is everything can be going well, but it only goes so well as you don't walk into one bad actor. And lo and behold, it appears that we've found one. And so the nobility is incredible to be that miserable and be that nitpicky over things in life when much bigger battles have been won in the last week alone. Much bigger mountains to climb have been climbed in that last week alone. And yet this individual has decided to take the most petty things in the planet and make them mountains, absolute mountains. And to me, that's pride. It's pride. It's lost sight of the role that they're in, and should likely consider another position before more lives are destroyed that actually are putting the work in. But I find that, so we found an actor in our story that has made things stressful on her employees, on her clients, on the people around, all because of arrogance, in my opinion. I've seen situations like this before in the treatment community. I know of 3 individuals, and I still don't know how this is, but have been doing this for a couple of decades, that literally outwardly profess that they cannot stand addicts, that they hate. It's not they hate addiction. They actually hate the addict. And in one case, it was because an ex-husband was an alcoholic. I've known nurses that had alcoholic husbands and couldn't stand me as a peer in the ED just because of my history. It's baffling to me how you can put yourself in these care providing situations or these course correction situations, especially when it comes to kids. And yet you can have this bias that intentionally is like almost a badge of honor to do the most egregious things to a family in terms of making sure that they're not together. It's baffling to me. So when I see that, there's a couple of things at play. One is my warning was heeded. It's come in our home. We've run into it again, which seems to happen very frequently. We do well, things going good and everything else, and then somebody just for no reason at all changes the rules. And so that's sort of where we're at right now. But also from my perspective, what I have to do is manage this correctly, because one of the things I'll do is if I have all these things going well, that one bad thing, all of a sudden I think I'm falling all apart again. Now, last video, I talked about incomprehensible demoralization, that place where it's not rock bottom, but you feel like everything's falling apart and you just can't take it anymore. That's where recovery a lot of times happen. Well, when things are going really well and I have this one thing go wrong, yes, it may be a setback in the certain circumstance I'm in, but it's not incomprehensible demoralization. I'm not back at rock bottom. I haven't lost everything. I've just things that had a positive momentum, somebody decided to throw a monkey wrench in it for no reason at all. It was just not okay. There's nothing egregious going on. No offenses have happened. It's just because they want to do that. So why? Why do people do this? Well, one I mentioned is pride. I think that pride is a problem. I talked about the treatment communities, and this is not a treatment provider, but it is the treatment community has this happen fairly frequently where, you'll get somebody that's been doing this way for 100 years and they want to show everybody they know what they're doing, probably hate their job, probably hate their home life, probably not getting paid anywhere near what they'd like to. And they just want to, their one thing that they get out of it is power. And so that's one. There's legitimate exhaustion in certain lines of work. There's only so long you can do it. I can tell you there's many fields of work that I couldn't do for a lifetime. I'm fortunate I'm in a career that I could do this for a lifetime and love it. But, there's other careers I could do about 47 seconds and want to lay in front of a car. The second thing is stigma, and stigma is alive and well. And there are people that don't hesitate. They don't care. They have a view, and that view is going to hold. They don't want to have a conversation with you to understand. They don't want to seek to understand. They don't want to know that there's any possible different way of looking at things. They want to look at things the way they always were. And if you're an addict, you're terrible. If you're involved, if you found yourself involved in a program publicly, you're terrible. Just like me, I was so fortunate that my PO was so cool with me. I mean, he was forceful and he was stern. He was a Marine. He was not playing with me, but he also was very understanding. When I got my feet underneath me, he was going to make sure I didn't go back. Rehabilitation was a focus. Some people come into your life that rehabilitation is not the focus, whipping you so that their moral judgment is placed on you. They want you to pay penance to them, not the system, not to save anybody. They want you to pay for what you've done to them. And they'll use all their power to do that. And that's stigma, the way it's handled, it because they see you in a certain way and they see you as less than you. So that's one reason why these things happen. Another one is the one size fits all approach, just laziness. Let's do it all the same way because I don't want to think about nuance because it's too complicated and I don't want to think about nuance. I don't want to even try. Only the new people try hard at that stuff. And after a while, I just get sick of it and realize it's a battle not worth winning because the people above you might be doing things the old way and it's too hard to get past it. This is another one that I think is very real, and we don't talk about it really at all. We talk about this subject in a different context. So Gen X versus millennial, or any other generational label. But particularly recently, I've been seeing a lot with the Gen X, like Gen X rising up. I'm Gen X, and we're rising up. We're taking over. We're not putting up this stuff. When we were kids, we drank out of a garden hose. Those are all true, and I do think that we have a certain amount of fortitude that came through because we were kind of sick of candidly, the liberal agenda of the baby boomers and the fact that they were spending incessantly and destroying our futures and got rid of them, killed the middle class. We as Gen Xers lived a little bit rougher existence, a little bit, we certainly lived differently than the millennials do. A little more fortitude, I would think, as a general rule. However, there are some millennials that want to violate that stigma and they work very hard. For example, I have a rep that works for me. She calls on one of the most prestigious research institutions in the world. It's in the Maryland, DC area. And we were calling that customer in I believe it was the liver or bladder. I can't remember which lab it was in. We were in both labs, but I can't remember which one this conversation happened in. We were in this cancer diagnostic lab, and there was a conversation that the lab manager had with us relative to how COVID and some of the findings they had with that virus created a story that made some further advancements in cancer diagnostics and the spread of cancer, in that they saw how they were questioning why a 40-year-old healthy man would die of COVID, but yet an 80-year-old unhealthy man would not. How could that possibly be true? And they found that the pathways, the way the virus traveled, and that 40-year-old man was unobstructed and basically just fast-tracked right through him. Whereas the 80-year-old man may have had some obstructive characteristics based on his genetics that stopped the virus from traveling as fast or nearly as aggressively. They found that that's the same pathways that cancer takes in your body, which obviously is a pretty remarkable notion that those two could possibly follow that same path. And so what she stated, and rightfully so, is it's not a conclusion, but it is an interesting story to tell as they do further research. Anyway, we're having this conversation, and the entire time, my millennial, quote unquote millennial rep is standing there, and this person is making basically not veiled disparaging comments towards how lazy millennials are, and kept leaning towards me like we're part of one team because we're Gen X. And I stood up for my rep. I'm like, well, that may be true as a general statement, but this one happens to be a farmer. She's a scientist, hardworking, and she seeks to understand the people that she works with more than her own well-being. And so basically why I did that is because it basically violated all the things that we would say a millennial is. She's none of that. And actually it's a remarkable rep, and I'm pretty proud to have her on my team. But the point is that this millennial Gen X thing, I think, is more prevalent than we think. It's another version of stigma. In our situation today, I think that played into a circumstance within this agency. We have a very proactive, hardworking, what I think is a Gen X or a millennial, that is the point of contact with us. And another person within this agency is, I think, borderline, maybe Gen X, but probably on the younger end of it. And then this other person is clearly Gen X, or maybe more, probably Gen X. But either way, this whole like this young kids like type thing is what it just seemed like it. This crotchety old person and having this problem. It seemed like that was what was going on. And we see it over and over again, especially, and I'm not picking on women, but it does seem to be women do this more to women than men do to men. Men are more to be competitive, but women will actually cut your throat to get ahead of you at times in certain agencies. I've seen it. I've personally witnessed it multiple times in nonprofits. And it seems to be prevalent there. I don't know if it's because the money is so tight, and to get higher up in positions, you really have to battle for them. I'm not sure, but this just had all the earmarks of that. So there's that. And that's the cultural battle lines. And then there's just the lazy lordship. I don't want to put the effort in. This is the way it is. It's the way we've always done it. Forget about the measurable outcomes being worse than you could ever imagine. The way it's being done doesn't matter. This is the way it's done. And I'm an expert at how we do things around here. And that's some of that stuff that can happen too. At the same time, there's this God complex or law enforcement complex that can often happen with people that aren't actually cops. They're not actually law enforcement, but they like to use as much power as they possibly can within their legal right. And sometimes they push it a little far. So with all that, of course, I'm upset. And I'm very upset with the fact that Sam and I are absolutely working very hard for the collective of our family and not our own individual agenda. We are working very hard for our daughters because we want to make sure they have the hope and future that we both dream for them. I've got a pile of letters over here that all come from Sam. They're all talking about the girls, loving them and missing them, loving and missing me. We are a unit here. And what we're finding is a system that wants us to not be a unit for a reason that's not apparent to me. I could understand if we were in a current state problems, but what the whole system is supposed to be designed for is to heal people and to grow them in a sober lifestyle. And I think that somewhere along the line, the system loses sight of that. Once people start getting going, they want to keep on them. And inevitably what that turns into is exhaustion and people falling apart and having what supposedly be prevented actually be caused. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, in our circumstance, that's not going to happen because I've decided that regardless of who's going to come in our face and who's going to try to destroy my family, they cannot, because we're going to do the work that we are supposed to do and the work that sometimes seems unreasonable to address concerns of those around us, whether their intentions are noble, prideful, cultural, lazy, whether they're exhausted, whether they have stigma towards us. I don't really care what it is that they're asking, because my objective is not to win a turf war with somebody that I don't respect, which I don't. My objective is to accomplish the greatest possible outcome for my daughters and for Sam and for me and for my son in this home. That's what we want. We ultimately want to heal the home and move forward and get some of these obstacles out of the way. I don't appreciate new barriers coming in. And I'm telling you, for those of you, if you are a social worker or if you are somebody that works in affairs like that with human beings and you've been at it too long, retire. Because your expertise, if your heart is not in it to provide innovative ways to deal with a world that is desperately hurting and needs innovative ways from somebody that has your expertise, if you're not there for that and you're only there to ride it out till retirement, leave. We don't need you. We don't need you. When my family was struggling and my family is struggling, we can use the support. We appreciate people that are willing to have a conversation and come alongside of us. We always do. In my recovery, I appreciated it. because one of the things I learned is in my recovery, and I talked about this last night as well, is that when I was homeless by choice in a lot of ways because people were willing to help, but I wasn't willing to engage. Sam and I are 100% willing to engage with support. We're 100% willing to engage with the rules. We want to do the right thing. But changing the goalpost just to show that you can flex is morally depraved. It tells me that you have bigger issues in your life and you don't belong in that type of work. It's no different than a law enforcement officer that walks into a kitchen with a black woman standing that obviously is having a mental health breakdown with no weapon on her and shoots her dead in her kitchen when there's 2 other armed officers right behind you as well. It's bullying, and it's taking your role and responsibility too far and to the point you're destroying other people's lives. So that's a hypothetical. If you're in that type of role and you're feeling that way and you're nearing your retirement, you're hanging on for your retirement, and you're not in the work for the right work, reassign yourself to something else and then put somebody in that role that wants to be innovative and help change things, or at least somebody that's willing to have a conversation, not somebody that's going to 2 fists the steering wheel, look straight ahead and not even acknowledge one of the children that you're supposedly here to help. So that's my thoughts on that. Our view and the advice I would give you as you go through these types of seasons is comply, do what you're supposed to be doing, do it quicker, faster, better than it's expected. Stick to it, stay the course, keep your stamina there because you never want to go back. You never want to look back. You never want that to happen again. Make sure that any single thing you're doing, you've got the stamina to make sure that you never go back. You never look back. That's what Sammy and I are looking at right now is we never want to go back. We're never looking back. We're doing everything we can in this 24 hours to ensure that that happens. What I can't do is change how some people behave. I don't know if they were raised wrong or their life experiences made them miserable, but they certainly like to have the power of kicking people when they're down. And that's the mistake you make with my home is because we're not down. We're learning. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Sorry for a little bit of a rant tonight, but sometimes I don't have any answers. Sometimes I'm just frustrated. And tonight I'm super frustrated with what was a very positive role. I had good communication with multiple agencies and a lot of work going on and things were going very positively and we're getting a lot of feedback. That's good. And Sammy's getting good feedback and everything else. And then one person walks in and changes the whole trajectory of things, even for their own staff. That is shameful. Because if I did that in my business, they'd call HR on me as a leader. And I would have to I would have an accountability measure for treating my employees poorly. I'd have an accountability measure for treating other customers poorly. And certain agencies don't apparently have that. So maybe that's something we can talk about is levels of accountability. I said, maybe perhaps as we move through this, what I am looking to do is on the other side of this is to find how do we help people through these things? Because I can tell you with the energy I have and the resources I have, it's been extremely difficult to get through this stuff. Very difficult. I don't know how people do it. I really don't. I've been fortunate that my circumstances allowed me to, but I don't know how they get through it. So I think there's a place out there that we could really, for those of us that have been through, come along in an advisory manner alongside people and help them, support them, at least keep their heads straight so they don't do something stupid or say something stupid. Because I can tell you right now, I can't imagine how bad this would be if we'd been antagonistic. I can't imagine. So anyway, don't be antagonistic. That'd be the advice I would give you. And perhaps this video is being a little antagonistic. Whoops. I'm actually not trying to be antagonistic. I'm trying to get people to wake up to recognize there's human beings on the other side of it that actually are trying to put the work in and you don't have to be a jerk. So anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Got a little thunderstorm here. I got a couple of girls that are a little bit nervous about that, but I think we'll get them to sleep. Thunder feels like it's blowing over. Guys, thanks so much. Got some comments last night. Greg, thank you. I appreciate you, man. Every now and then you pop in with a comment that's really encouraging to me. I don't know what's going on in your life, but it seems like your timing is impeccable. So I really appreciate you. I also was on a meeting tonight. I don't normally do Zoom meetings, but I did the Zoom meeting. It was run by a guy out of New Jersey, and it was the very best Zoom meeting I think I've ever been on. Hold on. I'm going to find the name of it because you guys got to know what this is. It was called... Of course. Welp, hold on. I put it in here as a reoccurring thing. It's every single day at 6:20. The guy's name was Anthony that ran it, and it was absolutely awesome. It's called the AA Zoo Crew 22, the No Matter What Club. And I'm telling you what, the way they structured this meeting was efficient. It was awesome. Great input. There was like 78 people on there. I mean, I normally don't get into Zoom meetings like this, but I tell you, this thing was freaking incredible. So if you get a chance, go check that out. I'm gonna go on it as much as I possibly can because I just got a lot out of it. I was digging it. I mean, just different perspectives, but it was just lively. And Anthony really knew how to run a meeting. It was good stuff. So if you're feeling a little off, and you're like me that doesn't need a meeting, but occasionally wants to, I'm probably going to be attending more meetings just because of this one. So check it out. It was well worth it. It was really encouraging to me tonight when I was a little bit grumpy. So I loved it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment like Greg. I love that comment. It was good. And you might get to have a little side chit chat there. So thanks so much, guys. And between now and the next time we talk, provided I didn't say something in this video that's going to get me in trouble, I'm going to do everything, single thing I can to stay out of trouble. I hope you do too.